So I think and I do believe that the cycle low for Bitcoin is somewhat in. I'll go through why I think that. I'm going to go through the obvious events of this week. CPI. Not bad last week, was it? That's going to lead to something with a certain FOMC thing going on this week. Got to look at that. So yeah, I think it's just best if we just get into it, really. One thing is for sure, uncertain right now, is Michael Saylor is still buying a bucket load of Bitcoin. As am I, funny enough. I'm about to do a dollar cost average. I will let you know what my wallet is doing in terms of this little mini thing I'm doing in terms of my channel. If you're new around here, subscribe, like the video, all that kind of good stuff. But I am doing a dollar cost average kind of challenge with Bitcoin. See how much I can get, manage it, see if I can grow it over time, right? With that being said, that is my wallet. I don't have much in it. We're going to start small and we're going to build it up because it's going to be fun. But let's talk about the obvious in the room, right? Before we go back into the rate cut scenario, BlackRock haven't been buying much Bitcoin recently, right? They've had 3 outflows in their entire history. Fair enough. But Fidelity have been buying quite heavy this month. But at the same time, there's been a few outflows too. It's a bit interesting, right? But it's interesting to the point that I think, my personal opinion anyways, everyone is waiting to find out what is going to be happening with these rate cuts. So to anyone that is not a follower of me or just watch this content for the first time, I often talk a lot about the market, the traditional market, in terms of why CPI is important, why the US rate decision is important, certain job data, economic kind of things, right? We don't want to cause a sneeze and a reaction in a tube where things are going to go very wrong very quickly and you're like, well, market manipulation, when actually the data was telling us, well, actually we're going down a shit alley. We don't want that situation. We want to be always at the front of it. Now, the biggest obvious thing today is there's some ECB speakers talking. They could talk about certain things. In the Eurozone and in the UK, we've got CPI on Wednesday, not to mention on US soil on Wednesday evening rate decision. That's going to be an interesting one, right? Why is it so interesting? You're probably wondering. Well, we're at record highs of the last God knows how long decades, right? We're at stupid levels, literally. Like if you look at like where we are, this is by far the highest we've been since 2006. The last time we did this, let's not talk about that. You get the idea, right? So this is the thing. Bitcoin could be, I'm going to make a basis point for it, a really good alternative investment if we get some problems. That's all I'm going to say, right? Let me continue. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I think, it's important to note this has swung massively since my last video. If you watched my last video, you'll know that this was like 82 or whatever it was, and it was on the floor. It looks like a 50 base points is going to be on the agenda. I've talked about it in my Patreon this morning, what my overall opinion is. I'll kind of keep it simple. I'll give you a little bit of a clue. I don't think the market knows what's going to happen. I don't think anyone has a clue. And I think there's one thing we do need to talk about, and let's talk about history. Now, this is a really good tweet. It came out a couple of days ago, and it's a really good account to follow. I recommend it. The charting comparisons are scary. Just going to put that point out there. The rate cuts same day. Unemployment, not far out. Inflation, very interesting. Economic, housing stats, the economic activity. What? History sometimes just rhyme quite a lot in finance. And this is what the result was. Sorry, I'm going to piss on these Cheerios this morning. Big correction into you all know what happened. Yes, there was other economic factors. Yes, they were doing certain naughty things with mortgage rates and whatever, right? We have to be mindful that sometimes this will create panic. And we've already seen before in the past with what could happen in certain panic situations, right? But that could be a good thing, right? Let me explain one final thing before I go on to Bitcoin and stuff. The rate cuts, as you can see here, but this was a tweet on the 22nd, and this is from Lynn Alden. I'd focus more on unemployment and economic indicators rather than the rate itself. And it goes back to this tweet in terms of, well, back in the time of here, unemployment rates were starting to climb. We're slowly starting to climb a little bit, right? we have to be very, very mindful of the job data. If that spooks, it creates panic. And we've already had that in the last couple of weeks. So that's where it gets interesting. So in obvious terms here, we have to look at the obvious in terms of what could be happening. May not be the exact same, but it will create a little bit of panic at some points. That's important to know. So back onto that orange thing that you put in your pocket. No, you don't really. Internet magic money. We have got a very interesting proposition here. Bitcoin is doing relatively okay so far in September. I know, usually does rubbish. It's not doing too well. So that's interesting. Q3 often bad, Q4 often very good. Now, when we talk about flight for safety and we talk about, well, if there's a bit of trouble here, banking crisis, economic downturn, whatever it may be, Bitcoin is, and I know some people disagree with me, a good alternative to put your money into. We've seen that in the past. Look back at 2023 with when the banks went a bit iffy. You could probably argue that was a catalyst that started this little runoff. But let's talk about the cycle low. Because where I am currently is I've got this on my chart, the cycle low, right? I'll tell you how I exactly got to this point in rough areas. Fibonacci sequence from the low to the high. We've went and retested around this area of significance in terms of 618 levels, right? I.e., we've had a bit of a break, we've pulled up to certain levels, and we've kind of created a little bit of an issue-y area around here, right? That could be an argument where there's a lot of demand around this 48,000 level zone. The other level was actually a bit more simple, where we're looking at certain situations where we've got the 382 correction, put a box around it. You could probably argue that cycles like that sort of things. Not to mention high scale levels of resistance and support previously, as you can imagine here, all this stuff here, la 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 la. It's quite interesting to know. But this wick is very, very interesting in terms of, have we actually just soaked up a lot of that pressure and things could be fine? But it's not as easy as that, is it, boys and girls? No, it's not. You could look at other situations around this Fibonacci. You could probably argue from this Fibonacci point here. You can argue from this Fibonacci point here as well, which is actually the 618 levels pretty much on the nose. However, I know it's subjective, but when you look at it in the grand scheme of things of an obvious situation around support levels and resistance levels, this is looking okay. What isn't looking okay is when you zoom in and you think to yourself, well, we're not out of the woods yet. No, we're not. We definitely are not out of the woods. So please be mindful. This could be the cycle low because rate cuts could allow things to go higher. Maybe. We got to be careful. We are still somewhat in a downtrend, but if we do pull back a little bit and create a higher low for the first time in a while, it might be quite good. Daily time frame, you can kind of see we are slowly trying to get out of this situation where the EMAs are starting to slowly cross. This starting to act as levels of support, which is huge, whereas previously we've struggled, we've deviated, and we've created problems. So we're going to go a bit higher. We're going to break this level of structure realistically and see where we go. But with these rate cuts and all this kind of stuff happening, obviously with other data too, we're going to probably find an obvious, it's obvious, isn't it? Volatility. Market probably will do something a little bit wild, which I think is going to be very, very important. Other factors with obviously Bitcoin as well is the fact that the dollar is absolutely destroying itself and literally eating itself, right? Literally, where is this going to go, right? When we look at the 3-day time frame, you can kind of see the structure. It's very, very clear. We are starting to break down from this level. If this does continue going lower, and we might see ourselves down at the 99 levels, that could be very, very interesting to see where the price goes. And as I've alluded to it, Bitcoin does well when things go a little bit shit, right? We may well find, and this is the absolute speculative base point here, right? Rate cuts happen 50 base points. Ooh, data isn't terrible, but ultimately people are a bit worried about the fact that the interest rate is going to plummet. Where's the money? Where's the liquidity going to go? Is the dollar going to get weaker? Is the likes of gold going to get stronger? Is the likes of Bitcoin going to get stronger? Then you talk about other situations of flight to safety and banking crisis, and people want to put their money somewhere. And then we start to find that, well, Q4 of the entire market for crypto is relatively good, bullish indicators. Michael Saylor's buying, all this kind of stuff's happening. The election, Trump might get in power. Oh my God, regulation galore. And then BlackRock start buying again and everything's hunky-dory and off we go. That could be the most speculative situation ever, but it's actually not unrealistic at the grand scheme of things. we may well find that the S&P corrects anyways, because most of their returns over the last 18 months or whatever has been through literally 7 or 8 top stocks. Nvidia, for example, Meta, Apple. You get the idea. They're all big stocks. They've all kind of moved the needle quite big and aggressively. So that could be fun too. So we've got to look at that as a massive, massive thing. I do, as I say, talk about this quite a lot on my Patreon regarding where the market can go. But I am somewhat, I don't know. You see that many conflicting thoughts, and you see a lot of people just put in the fact that, oh, a rate cut's going to be so bullish, you're going to stimulate borrowing. But when you look back and you think to yourself, well, yeah, it's going to stimulate some borrowing, but not tomorrow, not the day after, not in 3 weeks, not in 4 months. It's going to take a long, long time to get to a point where people are going to be actually easy enough, like looking at that chart going, I'll probably borrow now. Why not? You know, the interest rates have to drop a couple of percentage first, right? You can't just go, yeah, cool, money, QE, liquidity, printer, off we go. No, this is where it gets interesting. So we've got to look at both sides of the story, right? Story A, as I've alluded to it, we could be getting a monster correction in the S&P 500, but as I say, Bitcoin could become a really good place to plonk your money. But what does that mean for altcoins? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, and let me know in the comments as well, right? If you think a genuine altcoin season is coming, because I've got a little feeling things are going to be very, very interesting in the next couple of weeks, right? Certainly when we look at the fact of the base rate cuts and stuff like that, because when we start looking at alt season and we're looking at this has shifted massively over the last couple of days. Basically, a lot of altcoins are slowly catching up with Bitcoin, right? Obviously, Ethereum's doing horrendous, by the way. Just going to put that point out there. Now, when we look at this now, and I talked about in my previous video not too long ago, we're now at 43. That's given us really good signs that we might actually be getting to a point of interest. And in my last video, as I've alluded to it, we talked about the total 3/BTC, a chart that you should realistically be looking at all the time. And we're waiting for a change of character, essentially, from this point. We're looking for a breakout. Not happened yet, but when it does, you'll know about it. But what has happened yesterday is the fact that BTC dominance has, for the first time in a very long time, reached levels of 58%, which gives us an idea of potential areas where this could be changing. However, flight to safety, people will want to put their money in Bitcoin. You may well find inflows galore here. Michael Saylor and other cronies and friends might be putting money into Bitcoin, especially to kind of save their ass a little bit, potentially, right? Now, that's all speculation, but if there is a rotation, because we're going down the avenue now, Bitcoin goes to a certain price point and all the algorithms and the markets go absolutely crazy. And what I mean by this is, what if we are looking at this impulse here to the top, to the correction, right? And then we are going to start seeing some absolutely monstrous levels around this $83,000, $86,000 level, which isn't too unheard of, realistically, in the grand scheme of things, pulling back towards this nice little level and going up to these sort of levels. What's going to happen? Well, everyone's going to talk about Bitcoin. You're going to be recommended content about Bitcoin and altcoins. Your friends are. Everyone is going to talk about it, and then we're going to start seeing that catalyst roll. But it's early. We can't just presume that. Is this a cycle low? Are we in? Maybe. Is this going to continue going higher? Are we going to get breakouts this level and we're going to clear the all-time high and then get everyone talking about it? What happens if we jump too quickly? Are we just going to correct? When are you going to take profit? All that kind of stuff. How big will the altcoin season be? Now, going back in the past, and this is where it's important, and I got asked a question on my MMQs not too long ago about, what was it like in 2017? Well, the fact of the matter was, we dropped dominance that fast, right? Like literally, like from, start of December down to here. It was that fast. It was absolutely unfathomable, right? It really was. It was literally 3 months of absolutely mentalness, and it was crazy. And I wish I could go back in time and redo my decisions. But that realistically could be a factor where we're looking at this thinking, well, what about if we do spike up hard and fast and it goes crazy, then into altcoins very quickly, and it's a very, very short, sharp, sweet burst into a potential recession? I know these are random thoughts, not financial advice, but I'm giving you some ideas. This could repeat realistically, right? Where we get a really massive surge in Bitcoin because people are flapping. What if it happens, right? And then money rotates into altcoins and there's opportunities there. that could be interesting, because we all know how now, especially on X and YouTube and even on other social media algorithms, if you talk or watch or consume any content, you get recommended it. Yeah, I think a 50% move on Bitcoin will get people talking, and then everyone will talk about it. Then, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you see the picture. So we've got to look at that. But yeah, be mindful of this. This isn't an area where you don't really want to be heavy in altcoins. I'm still 80% Bitcoin. Still, I will be rotating a little bit of money into altcoins, and we'll see what happens. If we do get a short, sharp burst down, I don't think we're going to go to the new lows, especially now. I would be very, very surprised if we get below like this 47%, especially now with the institutional investments. But it depends on Ethereum. Ethereum's going to be the key one here. Anyways, I've waffled for so long, and I hope you get the point. I might be doing an MMQ sort of YouTube special, which is like an AMA. It's very, very popular on my Patreon, and I might just get it open for everyone to like, and I'll select questions and then I'll just answer them as a really long video. That, as I say, they do well and people love them. Could be very, very fun though. Might not work very well on YouTube though. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. That's it. End of video. Make sure you subscribe though and like the video.